Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. Really excited for this conversation today with Neil Shah. He's the interim CFO and really has done some interesting work with a nonprofit CFO roundtable group. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but more importantly, we're going to be talking about nonprofit financial storytelling, which, wow, storytelling and finance. Sometimes that makes me a little uncomfortable, Neil, but I think you're going to set us straight, right?
Absolutely.
Well, we're delighted to have you here. We're also delighted to have our amazing partners. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Third Sector Company, Your Part-Time Controller, Fundraisers Friday, and JMT Consulting. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy, and I'm getting over a bad cold, so I sound like a 2-pack-a-day smoker. Wendy F. Adams, you're going to have to carry the show, sister.
Here we go.
I appreciate you being here as always. Wendy F. Adams, CFRE, Cultivate for Good. I can't think of a better person to be on the show for this conversation with Neil Shah today, because Wendy, with her practice and talking about leadership and communications, wow, this is going to be a really interesting thing. So, Neil, welcome to the Nonprofit Show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We're really excited. I mean, we're going to talk to you about communicating about our finances. But I want to back the bus up a little bit and have you tell us about the CFO roundtable and what this looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been an interim CFO and a CFO for nonprofit organizations the majority of my career, and as I've kind of grown in the role, I've always found a certain loneliness factor. Where there aren't a lot of opportunities for other nonprofit CFOs to get together, to learn from each other. We're all facing the same similar types of challenges, funding reductions, hiring great top talent in the nonprofit world. And I wanted to meet others and to be able to learn from others, and I couldn't see that out there. I didn't find a resource out there specifically for nonprofit CFOs, and so I thought, okay, well, maybe I should try to pull together a few of the people that I know in my world and meet maybe every other week and see if there are opportunities for us to kind of share challenges that we're facing, and have an opportunity for the other people in the group to provide their experience, provide their their advice, their feedback on the challenge that I'm facing. And so I did that, and then I invited other people to do that, and we formed a group where we meet every other week. We have certain participants are kind of scheduled to be the presenters in that meeting, and they'll have a few minutes to kind of present their problem or challenge, and then the rest of that 15-minute block, the other group members will provide their feedback and their experiences to that challenge. And what you find is that you're getting feedback from others, which is really great because they're all very they're facing those same types of challenges, but then you also get the opportunity to be able to provide and help others in their challenges. And so I ran a pilot of that last year with some people that I knew, and now I've kind of launched it out to the rest of the nonprofit world, where any nonprofit CFO can join one of these groups and be a part of attending on a bi-weekly basis to be able to listen in and provide that feedback, an opportunity to be able to present their own challenge. And I also provide some opportunities for guest speakers to come in, whether it be like best practices on implementing a nonprofit systems implementation, or best practices on toxicity and how to find toxicity in your finance team. And so having experts kind of come in to provide some professional development while also having the space to be able to all kind of just meet together. The groups are confidential. Obviously we're being very vulnerable in these spaces. And so any opportunity to keep that confidentiality is very important. But I'm finding a lot of success, and I'm finding that people, it's a real need in terms of the nonprofit CFOs being able to talk to others that are facing very, very similar challenges.
Neil, you are jumping in with collaboration. You saw a need and you just addressed it like it's not there. Exactly. So let me be a part of the solution, and how you're collaborating around that. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Wendy and I talk about this a lot offline, and Wendy's expertise is in leadership development. And it is lonely, and it's hard to articulate that, because I think at the core, the message is you don't want to appear to be weak.
Right.
You don't want to be a weak leader. And so how do you find that place and then to boot, you've got, especially with CFO work, anything with finance, you have very specific things.
Mhm.
There
You
are
can't just
guidelines.
wing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. That's right. Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we got to ensure that the data has strong integrity, that there's so many compliance requirements, and that we're accounting for all the funding the way it should be funding. Nonprofits, we've got restricted funding, unrestricted funding, earned revenue, all sorts of different ways of accounting for that information. And a lot of not CFOs come into the nonprofit space from the for-profit world, and they feel like they want to make that impact, but they're finding the nonprofit world, the way we do our accounting, the way that we present our financial information, it's just different. And that there's a storytelling aspect to understanding the data and helping board members and funders understand where we are. And that's different than telling shareholders, how profitable we were over the last quarter.
Well,
Okay,
and just to be able to jump into that, we got to go storytelling
Exactly,
and the
yep.
numbers, right?
Right.
And you're speaking the language of the nonprofit space for sure, but we're not talking about creative accounting. So let's say, what is financial storytelling, Neil?
Absolutely, absolutely. So when you have a CFO presenting to a nonprofit board or to a funder or to just internal management, the standard practice is always to have a balance sheet, a profit and loss statement, a statement of cash flows. And in the past, whenever I've presented this information, the majority of the eyes that are looking at me are glazed. And it's a bunch of numbers, it's a bunch of spreadsheets. It doesn't tell us where it tells financial data, but it doesn't help us understand how it connects to the program, the mission, and to the overall or a history of the organization and where we're going. And so financial storytelling is the blend of that financial information and creating that narrative that tells that story of the organization, where it is coming from, where it is now, and where it's going. And you can take that information and tie it to the program and the mission to best achieve what we're trying to achieve at the nonprofit.
It's such an interesting aspect of communication, Neil. And it seems to me like you're asking people whose expertise, such as your CFOs and your finance teams, to do something that they've never probably really done before, right? I mean, taking this information and putting it into a different capacity, and we'll use the word storytelling or the visualization of it. That's got to be a pretty heavy lift for most people.
Right, because it's not trained. You don't take a class in college for financial storytelling, right?
Yeah.
And CFOs, for the most part, myself included, are numbers people that we're not the great creative writers of our day. There might be a couple out there, but we're generally not. I certainly am not. And so it's a practice. It's a practice of learning how to present this information and get it into an understandable way for non-finance folks. And that's really the key, because it's the non-finance folks that are making the decisions, whether it be your programmatic teams, whether it be your senior leadership team, whether it be the board. And being able to have a narrative around that financial data really helps get the true understanding and meaning to everyone, and get that common alignment, which is really, really important.
And that's what I was going with. Yeah, that's it. You hit it. Yeah. We're now all aligned. It's breaking those silos down. That's not just the numbers people. We're all centering around the impact. And you know where I'm going, Julia. That's a cultural philanthropy. Now we're getting it, and we're all humming at the same time. And now the community seeing the numbers and the impact telling the same story. Love it.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So, I think that you've sold us on this path. We need to do this. But then how do we do this? Because to your point, wow, you don't learn this when you're, getting ready to become a CPA or an accountant or in finance. So how do we gather data that's going to tell a story? And what is it that we gather? Because to your point, those 4 reports that you would generally show, the balance sheet, profit and loss, help me with the other 2.
The cash flow, the statement of cash flows. Yeah, those are the main. Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of data. What are you advising us on doing?
So when you present a financial statement, it's what I said, those reports, right? The balance sheet tells a certain point in time. This is our balance sheet as of today. These are our assets, our liabilities at a certain point in time. Our statement of activities, our profit and loss, will show a period of time. So year to date, or in the last year, this is how we've done our budget, and this is how we've tracked against our budget. This is our total forecast, et cetera. To tell the story, you've got to go back a little bit further. And so what I do when I work with an organization, a nonprofit organization, I'll sometimes go back 5 or 10 years. And the where I get the data is the financial audit. And so I'll look at, and pretty much every nonprofit will have some type of financial audit on an annual basis. And I'll take the information that's in the financial audit, because that gives me not just the current year, but it really gives me much more history. So let's say right now we're most of the nonprofits have done their fiscal 24, through June or December of last year. And so I'll look at going all the way back to 2014, 2015, and I'll look at all of the programmatic revenue. So how they get the majority of their revenue, their fundraising, what's the revenue from their operations, and then what's the expenses related to those operations. So salaries, facility costs, all of these things that we need to ensure that we can run our operations, right? So there's operating revenue for the last 10 years, operating expenses for the last 10 years, and that tells us our operating surplus. And that's hopefully either a positive number or sometimes it's a negative number, right? That's our deficit. And then below the line, I'll add things like interest income, interest expenses, depreciation. These are all important things, but they don't affect operations, day-to-day operations, right? And then I'll get to a total net income. And of course, I'll tie that out to the audit. And then I'll add what is unique, especially over the last 5 years, are these one-time events. And so, charter schools and public, K through 12 got a lot of ESSER funding, COVID response funding, right? Many nonprofits got PPP forgiveness over the last few years, right?
Right.
There might have been, a sale of a building. And what I'm trying to get to are, what's the story? So historically, over the last 10 years, how are we tracking? We know, is there a trend to our operating surplus deficit? Is there a trend to our total net income? And have these one-time events been masking some of the potential gains that we've been getting over the last few years? And I'm finding that's the case right now over the last 4 years since COVID, last 5 years since COVID. So, when you look at it on a 1 year basis, you see, okay, well, we had the solid net income for the year, but we forget that, a large part of that net income had to do with the PPP forgiveness, right? That's a one-time thing. It's never going to happen again, right? So I'll take this data and I'll start to formulate a thesis. Like, it seems like over the last 10 years, our personnel expenses have been going up by this, but our revenue hasn't been going up by the same rate, right? That's my thesis. I have a couple of theses going in as I'm looking at this data. And then I'll use AI tools like, let's say, ChatGPT, and I'll take the Excel information there, I'll upload it. I'll tell ChatGPT my thesis, like, I believe this is the case, but confirm my thesis. What's the growth rate of personnel expenses versus the growth rate? So I'll let it do some of the manual calculations that I would normally do pre ChatGPT, and that information most of the time confirms my thesis. And so now I understand over the last 10 years, our personnel has been going up like this, but our revenue has not been growing at the same rate. Or we have had operating deficits the last 5 years, every single year, but our total net income has been positive because we had PPP and we had COVID response dollars and we sold this building, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now, as these things are no longer going to happen in the future, this is what we expect our operating surplus to be. So now I've got like the story in my head. I understand over the last 10 years, we've been spending a lot more than what we get. But that maybe it's not always apparent to everybody because we get this other sources of income. That's one story. There could be other stories as well. With a charter school network, let's say, the COVID response, the PPP forgiveness has been masking the fact that our enrollment has been declining. So we know our enrollment's been declining, but our auditor has, our financial statements say that things have been positive, right? And the reason why is because of these one-time events. And now these one-time events go away, our enrollment is still going down, or it's not flatlining or increasing. So now the deficits are going to get much more larger. And that's what I want that story to be able to tell me, to help me understand what has been happening, what's been masking it, if anything has been masking it, and it helps me kind of think about what the future might hold.
Well, that's it. Where do we go from here? We start stepping into that strategic planning space. Now we have real information as to why we are where we are and what, if we need to, make any pivots or adjustments.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Neil, one of the things that's so interesting to me, and Wendy, I would love your feedback on this as well, is I heard you use the word trend several times. And to me, that's fascinating because it's not like the specific thing that you should be dialed in with. It's more that trend. And I really appreciate you talking about the various inputs and how they can make you believe something that really is just a one-off versus understanding the trend.
That's right.
Wendy, in your experience with leadership, are you working with leaders that understand they need this longer view, or are they caught up with that minute by minute?
Well, it's both, right?
Mhm.
We're transitioning, and people are recognizing more and more. The leaders are taking and seeing, to what the point that Neil just made, over the last 4 years, 5 years, how important it is to go, what was the reality, right? What's our reality in this? And they're looking further back to be able to pull those trends out. So they're more open to it. Some are down that train and really embracing how important that is. But at least the conversation is happening. And so there's this openness to say, we have to do this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
That's right.
interesting. It's
That's
so
right.
very interesting. So now you really figured out a way to be thinking about this. And I love that you use the word thesis. I think that's great because we can all understand that. How do you then try and communicate this to people who,
Mm.
boards, they're not
Mhm.
used to seeing numbers, or they're used
Right.
to seeing numbers in a for-profit environment and not the nonprofit sector?
Right.
How
Right.
how do you how do you feel about this? And do you think that it's something that can be done with an infographic or some of these tools that are out there?
Yeah, it absolutely can. It absolutely
You
can.
can. Okay.
And so generally what I do then is I take that information and I start to create a slide deck. And I'll take the slide deck, and the goal here is not to have a 20 slide deck, 30 slide deck type of presentation, of course, right? Keeping it to 4 to 6 slides max, I think, is really, really important. So we can start with that framework of keeping the information as straightforward and clear as possible, using charts, using graphs, using high level tables, and so that you're not looking at dollars with millions and like with .00 with the decimals, but having an opportunity to be able to say, this is the trend that we've been having. Our operating surplus has been trending in this regard over the last, and it's a line chart. It's something very, very clear. Excel can create this, Google Sheets can create this. It's very, very straightforward in that way. But and having a headline, right? So you start off with the slide deck with an executive summary. That is absolutely key, to have the 3 or 4 major points that you want to make sure that everyone remembers. And if nobody else remembers anything else from those 4 to 5 slides, it's that 1 or 2 or 3 main points, maybe even just that one main point that you really want to take away. And so that's kind of highlighted in the executive summary. And the rest of the slides are, an image, a chart, a table with maybe 5 or 6 rows that just have some big numbers in there. They're very clear, and a headline to each of those slides. Like this is what we're showing. Your operating surplus has been doing this, with an arrow pointing at the chart, and the line is doing what it's doing. And you have maybe 2 or 3 of that. So it kind of weaves in, like, historically we were here, and now over the last 5 years we've been doing this, and this is what we project going. If this trend continues, this is where we are. So this is the problem we have to fix. It's the enrollment for the charter school, or it's the government grants for the nonprofit, whatever it might be. This is the challenge that we've been facing, but it's been masked by these other areas. And you could have that information very high level without a bunch of numbers on it, because people aren't going to remember the numbers. They're going to remember the image. They're going to remember how they felt when you told them the main point. That's what's key. Like, you hit them on that main point, and that's what they're going to take from that conversation, and that's what you want to deliver. And it's a challenge for CFOs, because CFOs want to show as much financial data as possible. And
get in
so
the
struggle
weeds.
is, exactly. So the struggle is to show, quite honestly, as little financial data as possible, but just the most important financial data to convey, and the story and the headline around it that you want people to remember. And it's got to hit them hard. It's got to be clear. That's really what's key.
You're bringing the emotional piece to the finance, right? It's where they're going to have their tie-in and their buy-in, and now they own it. Whatever departments we're talking about, now they're owning. Oh,
Exactly.
I am connected to that in this way. That is phenomenal.
That's exactly right.
I'm fascinated to be talking to a financial leader and to bring in the concept of emotion.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever heard that. And I love what you said. How did they feel when they heard this information? That's riveting. And I also am fascinated by your advisement to pick 3 to 5 things. That's what I'm hearing you say, that are like the most important things. And then you're going to be telling this group or board or committee, whatever,
Mhm.
this is like the number one thing. This is the number two thing. I mean, am I hearing that correctly? Or is
That's
this like
exactly right.
a
That's
cold,
exactly right.
cold dream?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. What is the story? What's the main point or main 2 or 3 points? What do
Mhm.
they want to because what we're trying to get to is we're trying to get to what is their advice, right? So like if it's the board or if it's management, like we want you to have this information and we want to hear from you as to,
Mhm.
how do you suggest, right? Because finance can give the information, analyze the
Mhm.
information and present the information, right? But we don't control, we don't determine, like we're not the ones bringing the revenue into the
Mhm.
organization, we're not the
Mhm.
ones spending those programmatic dollars, right? Those other
Yeah.
teams are. So our job is to analyze and to help understand and educate. Um,
Mhm.
Most CFOs and finance teams are really good at the analysis part of it, the accounting piece of it, but it's the ability to be able to present it in a way that they can understand it, is really where they're going to have the most effect to those other stakeholders and groups,
Mhm.
because they can take that information, really understand it, and then go do something about it, which is really the most important thing there, right?
That's
So that
it.
and that's
Putting
that's
it
the
into
job of the
action,
CFO.
Neil.
That's exactly right. That's
Yes,
exactly
but
right. Yeah.
Julie, you make a great point. The beauty of it is, let's be real, we're only walking away with 2 or 3 pieces anyway. We're like, wah,
Yeah.
wah, wah, at a certain point in
Mhm.
time. But now the way that Neil's describing this, you're
Mhm.
giving them the 3, 4 key, and in an
Mhm.
engaging way. Now they want to
Yeah.
walk away with it, and not just walk away with it, but engage with it and do something, the ownership of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I
That's
think
exactly
that's
right.
fascinating, is leading the conversation to, okay, here's the information. Now what's your decision? And
Right.
what's your leadership?
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
Because
Yeah.
that's fascinating. I think, a lot of times you can look at these numbers, and I'm speaking for myself, it's like, yeah, okay, well, now what do I do? I don't,
Yeah.
this is bad. What do I do? I can't,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't impact this. But I
Right.
love your switching this up. So you're talking about sharing the story and talking about communicating these points that have really been synthesized down so that you can make a decision. um, Talk to us a little bit about sharing this information. Does this go out just to your board or to your stakeholders? How close to the vest do you keep this?
Mm.
And do you use it when you're going back out into the community to do more fundraising, or, you know,
Yeah.
however you engage?
I think it depends on what the story is that you're trying to tell, of course. But and in some cases, you're presenting it to the full board. Sometimes you're presenting it in a closed session of the board because we're not ready to tell the full story to everyone just yet.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is a story that we're just trying to help a funder understand, such that they can accept our funding request of general operating funds or restricted funds, et cetera. So I think the audience is important. I think the method is definitely some type of in-person or virtual presentation where they can see me explaining it. They can see my hands. They can see my
Mhm.
smile. They can or sometimes my frown, depending on the numbers. But it's a way I'm projecting that information and I'm telling that information. I have not yet done this in a written way where somebody would be able
Mm.
to read my story. There might be ways to do that. I'm not, like I said at the beginning, I'm not the best writer out there. But I think the opportunity to be able to present this in a way where they can see and ask me questions, too, as well. And I think that's really important as well, to be able to have the
Mhm.
opportunity to have that engagement. And I think that's really done best in a type of in-person or a virtual type of setting.
Well, I think it translates to that lovely report that we all know, the annual report.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
not all
Yes.
of it, but this is going to take it and bring that to life with meaning. And so that's the way that this can travel in a
Right.
way that isn't, it still has a human who may be speaking on it from the development department
Yes.
and team.
Yes.
But now it has real meaning behind it with this
Mhm.
tracking and trending, and that takes that document and brings it to life.
And
So
that
I
leads
think
to
that's
something
great.
else around the opportunity for the CFO to educate the development folks on how to tell that story as well, right? So
Yeah.
Yes.
that they're actually reading the same story that the CFO is saying as well. And that's
It's
Mhm.
huge. Now you
beautiful.
got everyone in the organization telling the same story in an aligned story.
Mhm.
That's really key as well.
Yeah, awesome.
Man, I appreciate you bringing that up, because, I find, Neil, a lot of organizations, and I mean, these are like even sophisticated organizations that I've worked with, that are afraid of the finance department. They're afraid of
Mhm.
asking questions. The finance department kind of feels put upon,
Hmm.
because they're underwater. They're trying to get stuff done. And it doesn't seem like they always work together very well. And yet, the development folks need to know this. And so I'm
Mhm.
fascinated that you would have brought that up, and I know this is we don't have a lot of time left, but I would love to know what your advice is for an organization that might be feeling that pinch, and how do we get our development folks more in line with the
Yeah.
finance?
The partnership between finance and development is so key, and it's underrated because
Mhm.
how important it is to have. And I actually describe it further beyond that, and I look at it as a triangle between finance, development, and program. And the three legs of those triangles are really working in sync to find and to ensure that we are raising the funds that program needs, that development has the story to be able to go and sell it, and that finance is helping both development and program manage and decide how much funding is actually necessary, what's most efficient to use those dollars. And the most successful partnerships in that triangle is when finance is the bridge between both development and program and getting that information synced between both of them. And I've always
That's
also
a beautiful
believed,
picture.
right, the triangle. I gotta maybe get a graph of that somehow, or an image of that. But the opportunity to be able to, it all starts with finance being focused on customer service. And so when finance is a customer service organization or division inside of a nonprofit, we're here in service of program. We're in here of service for development. We're here to help you. There are times where we have to say no, because of financial compliance reasons or budgetary reasons. But it's not just no, but it's no, but maybe we could do it this way instead, and it's that thought partnership. It's that collaboration. It's the helping that finance really truly needs to be in any nonprofit organization. I've always had that sense of us being there to support and help. And when we do that, then development doesn't feel like they're coming in to bother finance, like you mentioned, Julia, right? Like the program can come in and look at finance and say, can you please help me? And they know that the response is going to be, yes, we can help you, rather than no, go figure it out yourself.
Neil just blew our mind at the end of the show with we're going to now be friends and their customer service through finance.
And I've never heard anyone say that. Have you, Wendy?
No.
Yeah. It's really an interesting thing because I use the word fear, and I don't like using that word, but it's sometimes it's so contentious. And I feel like now moving forward, funders are demanding metrics, and those metrics are going to be coming through the finance department in a lot of ways. And so if we don't embrace this or understand how to work together, it's just going to be a real tough thing. This has been a great conversation. Wendy, I think we don't give our folks from finance enough credit for being good guests, because we're always like, oh, the finance people aren't going to be fun and they're not going to be communicative, but you've been great. So thank you.
Thank you.
It really has been a wonderful thing. And for where we're going in the future, where the sector is, isn't it great to know that this is in place? It's not I wish we had it. We have it. Now we just got to utilize.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And Neil, I love the concept of interim leadership. We're spending a lot more time on that on the nonprofit show. I love that you've got this group, Nonprofit CFO Roundtable. What a great opportunity for organizations of all sizes to meet up and really get discussing certain things, because I feel like the marketplace is changing so quickly. And these CFOs have got to be part of that conversation.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So
that's
really,
exactly
exciting to have Neil Shah on today. You can learn more about the CFO group at CFOgroups.com. And there you'll learn more about what is going on. You'll actually even be able to see some images of the round table going on, which is really cool. And I can't recommend it enough. I think it's really great. And I really applaud you for doing this for our sector.
Excellent. Thank you. And I appreciate everything that you all are doing with this podcast. And I'm just excited to have been here. And thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And, you gotta love the finance team, right, Wendy?
That's right. Look, we're doing this together, but finance is saying, we're here. Utilize us. Yeah,
exactly right. That's exactly right.
Well, you know who we utilize every day are our presenting sponsors: Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Third Sector Company, Your Part-Time Controller, Fundraisers Friday, and JMT Consulting. These are the folks that join us day in and day out. As we reach almost 1,300 episodes, Wendy, this week is the 6th year that we start the nonprofit. So, which is pretty amazing. So
Yes.
thank you to everybody who supported us and continues with us on this journey. As we end each and every episode, we like to remind ourselves and our viewers and our guests to stay well so you can do well.